The movie opens in a vast land trembling from an earthquake. Switching to Niles, whose girlfriend Misty had just woken up. Niles is stuck in a time loop for far too long and has had to go through the same event over and over again. Misty hurries him to avoid missing her best friend, Tala's wedding. Must be really daunting to wake up to the exact same thing every single time. Here he is again, about to attend a wedding reception he's been to for the umpteenth time. Knowing about Niles' sentiment against weddings and love generally, Misty implores him to be of good conduct through the event, to avoid any form of embarrassment. Reacting to Misty's request, Niles gives her his words. While at the wedding, Sarah, the bride's sister, is summoned to give a speech. Wasted from drinking alcohol, she struggles. Niles decides to save the day by giving a laudable speech on her behalf, surprising Misty, who believes Niles hates weddings. His speech got the guests on their toes, and at the end of the party, an old lady, Nana, complimented Niles, telling him his speech stood out from the other speeches she had heard from the several weddings she had attended. For a guy who hates weddings and has to go through this one over and over again, I'd say that was unexpected. Niles and the other guests proceed to the dance floor to have a good time. While at it, Niles and Sarah bond, inadvertently discovering Misty cheating with another guy in the bathroom. Apparently, Niles doesn't give a diddly squat discovering his girlfriend cheating, considering that he must have seen that several times in the loop. Sarah's the rookie here. She goes on to tell Niles about her strained relationship with her family caused by her alcoholic tendencies and promiscuity. Things got heated up between the two, so they left the party to do it in the nearby desert. In the heat of the moment, Niles starts to undress, then he's shot by an arrow from an assailant. Injured from the arrow, Niles crawls into a cave while Sarah stares, stupefied. Eventually, she follows after Niles, who warns her not to enter the cave. Concerned for Niles, Sarah disregards the warning and follows him, joining him in the loop. The next scene shows Niles in bed, back to the first scene. Again, Misty wakes him up to get ready for Tala and Dave's wedding. Sarah also wakes up and realizes that it's November 9th again. Terrified, she leaves her room to discover her dad and stepmom prepping for the wedding. Sarah's weird behavior is attributed to drinking by her parents. Finally, Niles found himself a partner to live with in the loop. Upon realizing she's stuck in the loop, Sarah storms out of the house to confront Niles in the pool, pelting him with beer cans. Tala comes out of the house to stop Sarah, but she trips and breaks a tooth. Their father volunteers to take Tala to a dentist in town to avoid ruining the wedding. Sarah is stunned and confused that the wedding took place the previous day, but unable to wrap her head around what's happening. She returns to the pool to meet Niles, where she questions her situation. Niles reveals that by following him into the cave, she's become stuck in an infinite time loop, making the present day yesterday and the next day the present day. Niles further explains that falling asleep or dying resets the loop. Okay, so it appears Niles saw the possibility of this happening. That's why he told Sarah to back off. Apparently she didn't listen, and now she'll have to deal with the consequences. Sarah expresses her unwillingness to stay in the loop and asks Niles for a way out. Niles in turn tells her that there is none. To get out of the loop, Sarah returns to the cave where it all began. Niles tells her that entering the cave will not end the loop, but take her back to the beginning of the loop. Sarah shrugs him off, entering the cave, and just like Niles had predicted, Sarah wakes up again in bed. As the loop restarts, Sarah drives back to Texas, thinking she could escape the loop. Meanwhile, her parents are worried about not knowing her whereabouts. Niles, fully aware of what's going on, reassures them that she'll be back. In another location, Sarah enters her apartment in Texas and tries to fight falling asleep to stop the loop from repeating itself. Failing at it, she wakes up again in bed, starting November 9th over again. Sarah gets out of bed in frustration, storming Niles' room, leaving Misty wondering what's happening between the two. Sarah and Niles drive away, and during their conversation, Niles informs Sarah that the best way to live in that situation is to live like nothing else matters since they're not going to die. Sarah, still unconvinced about the uncertainty of leaving the loop, decides to end it all, then drives into a truck to get out of the loop, but again she wakes up in bed, still stuck in the loop. Later on, Sarah and Niles sit at a bar as he talks about his complacency and carefree attitude after abandoning all hopes of escape. Sarah remembers the assailant that shot Niles with the arrow, asking why he's after Niles. Niles reveals the assailant's identity as Roy, a guest at the wedding. Niles had inadvertently asked Roy to enter the cave after Roy wished to live in the moment forever. Roy, under the influence of drugs, did as Niles said, resulting in him getting stuck in the loop with Niles. Roy didn't find his new life appealing, so out of anger, Roy would always attack Niles for being the genesis of his problem. All I can say, don't do drugs and don't follow the guy you just met into some weird dark cave. In the subsequent days, Niles and Sarah become close friends, talking about their sex life, where Niles reveals those he had slept with, exempting Sarah from the list. Sarah concludes they probably need to perform a selfless act to escape their predicament. They both result in drinking and causing mischief. Apparently, Niles has been busting everybody's nuts since they don't have a sense of the situation. It's good to see that after trying every means of escape to no avail, Sarah eventually decides to live and enjoy the moment. They both begin to excitedly anticipate their next adventure together. During one of their times together, they camp in the desert. Sarah talks about her life before the wedding, revealing she was previously married. She tried to get Niles to speak about his life before the loop, but he gave an elusive reply. Later that night, they get tipsy and, well, make out. Okay, they're both adults, so why not? Surprised it took so long, to be honest. The next day, Sarah's woken up by Abe, whom she had slept with on November 8th, a day before the wedding. What? With her sister's groom? Okay. So the next revelation's gonna come from Niles and Roy, right? Guilt-ridden, Sarah refuses to talk about their sex the previous night with Niles, who seems so happy about it. She tells Niles it was just a moment, and it's no big deal. After being pulled over by Roy, who's disguised as a cop, Sarah runs him over with the police shop, hoping that would stop him from following them in the future or possibly end the loop. Tables have turned, Roy. Unfortunately for Sarah and Niles, they get arrested by a real cop. Niles is pissed at Sarah's conduct. Having warned her, they get into an argument, leading to Niles admitting to having slept with Sarah multiple times in the loop, something he had previously lied about. Pissed at Niles, Sarah stands in the way of a truck to escape. Wow, it must be quite the experience to be immortal. Imagine getting hit by a truck just to wake up in your bed. Sarah begins to avoid Niles following his revelation from the previous day. Meanwhile, Niles has grown attached to Sarah. He feels lost without her and spends several days helplessly moping about Sarah, who he hasn't seen in days. He becomes more miserable with each passing day. Then, one night, he was in Abe's room with the groomsmen when he perceived Sarah's body mist on Abe's pillow, inadvertently discovering Abe and Sarah's affair. One day you're each other's best friend, then the next you're no longer on speaking terms. Niles should better admit to his feelings and stop fronting. Niles wakes up the following day and goes down to Irvine to meet Roy, asking to be tortured. Roy expresses his displeasure about their situation, considering he would never see his children grow up. At the end of their conversation, the duo eventually reconcile. This is where it gets a little emotional. Ray is stuck in the loop to see his kids go through the same routine every day, without a chance of walking his daughter down the aisle. It's pretty sad. Sarah wakes up in regret and confronts Abe, who's equally filled with guilt. Sarah resolves to find an escape from the time loop. She spends time online in a diner learning quantum physics and general relativity. At the end of her study, Sarah discovers that the one way to get out of the loop is to blow herself up in the cave. She resolved to experiment her study using a goat. Just as she had thought, the goat disappears after blowing it up with explosives in the cave. Although she has no idea where the goat disappears, the experiment validates her assumption. Seems like the situation brought out the scientist in Sarah. But now that she does not know the final destination from the cave, she might as well prepare for Mars or hell. If you blow up a goat and it's not going to revive the next day, then it's dead, right? Later, Sarah meets up with Niles, who apologizes for his actions, as they both reconcile. Sarah explains her discovery to Niles, offering him a chance to escape with her. Niles looks confused about what Sarah has said, because she couldn't give a specific answer when he asked for their destination from the cave. Okay, maybe Sarah's plans are poorly thought out. They should at least know their final destination. They could end up dead under a pile of rocks for all I know. Niles professes his love to Sarah, urging her to stay with him forever in the loop. Sarah refuses Niles' offer and resolves to try her escape plan without him. Niles finally expresses his true feelings, but asking Sarah to stay with him in the loop is some selfish move. Sarah attends the wedding for the last time. This time around, she gives a heart-melting speech to her sister. That's some sisterly love right there. So sweet I could melt. At the end of her speech, Old Nana makes a beautiful comment, also making a somewhat cryptic statement that leaves Sarah lost. Afterwards, Sarah travels to the cave with explosives. Niles goes to the bar moping about Sarah. In a change of mind, Niles defies all the odds to join Sarah at the cave to leave with her. Upon getting to Sarah, Niles reveals he would rather die with her in the explosion than live in the loop without her. Sarah reciprocates his feelings by kissing him, and then presses the detonator. These two are so in love. The next scene shows Niles and Sarah relaxing in a pool of a nearby house he had shown Sarah during one of the loops, but was unsure when the owners would be back. Ultimately, the owner of the house returns and catches them in the pool, revealing they came back on November 10th, indicating that Sarah's plan worked. Finally, the lovebirds are out of the loop. It's an excellent time to explore their feelings, but what about Roy, guys? In a mid-credits scene, Roy returns to the wedding, asking if their escape plan worked, also revealing Sarah left him a voicemail explaining her plan. A confused Niles does not remember Roy. The latter realizes that the escape plan worked. Looks like old Roy will live in the loop forever, unless he decides to blow himself up in the cave. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.